Much of the southern and central regions of the High Plains Aquifer have been heavily depleted within the last 70 years. Figure 1 in the bottom left-hand corner of my poster shows that parts of the aquifer in western Kansas have experienced depletion rates of 100 feet or more during this time period. Now, for the aquifer to remain useful for irrigation in the near future, especially in western Kansas, irrigators will have to adopt more efficient irrigation practices. However, these more efficient irrigation practices often require accurate knowledge of subfield level crop water demands. Now, multiple methods have been proposed to predict crop water demands at the subfield level. However, these methods often require the use of intrusive sensor networks that are not conducive to normal farming operations. An alternative to these sensor networks is remotely sensed imagery. However, remotely sensed imagery has only been used to predict crop water demands at the regional and the national scales. So for my research, I used two different remote sensing data sources, one satellite-based and one plane-based, to predict crop water demands at the subfield level. I start by combining images from these two data sources with linear models to predict crop evapotranspiration coefficients. These coefficients are combined with reference evapotranspiration data from the Kansas Mesonet series. Now, combining these two data sources allows me to predict crop water demands at 1 and 30 meter resolutions every 1 to 2 weeks, depending on which data source we're discussing. Now, I started by comparing the crop water demands predicted by these two data sources. To do this, there were additional steps that were needed to produce images that were at the same spatial and temporal scale. These methods are shown in figure 3. However, once I completed these methods and I have images of crop water demands that are at the same spatial and temporal scales, I produced the results that are shown in figure 4. Now, these results show that both data sources produce crop water demands that are expected throughout the season based on normal crop coefficient curves. The early season shows a large increase in crop water demands across the entire field, followed by a plateau during the midseason, and then a slight decline during the late season. However, these two data sources do not predict the same crop water demands. The plane-based images produce higher resolution, both spatial and temporal resolution predictions. However, they consistently produce higher rates of crop water demands at the subfield scale. Now, after comparing these two data sources, I move on to aggregating these maps of crop water demands into maps that are more useful for making irrigation management decisions. Now, I use two different aggregation techniques. One is speed control zones, which are basically pie-slice shaped zones that mimic the type of zones you would see if irrigators have control over the speed of their center pivot. Another technique that I use is a clustering method that groups these maps of crop water demands into clusters that are similar to those that you would see if irrigators have control over the speed and the flow rate of water to individual spans or groups of nozzles on their center pivot. Now, both of these aggregation techniques reduce spatial variability in crop water demands and can be useful for irrigation scheduling in the future. However, the speed control zones do show practical advantages over the flow control zones, especially in the form of reduced cost for the infrastructure needed to control the flow. Now, from all of my research, we identified and quantified differences in crop water demands throughout space and time using these two different data sources. Both of these data sources show potential for use in informing irrigation management decisions and must maintain high yields under reduced water availability. However, additional research is needed to validate the results from these two data sources and turn them into actual management decisions and quantify the actual improvements in water use efficiency from these schedules. Overall, this is a step in the right direction to providing irrigators with more accurate estimates of crop water demands at the subfield level and could be useful in a future where irrigators have to make decisions with less water. Thank you for your time.